My son humiliated me at dinner, saying I wasn't welcome in my own home. Just thinking about those words breaks my soul all over again. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. If you also believe that we still have value, even after 60, type 1 in the comments. And please, leave a like and subscribe. Let's show that we're strong together. It was 6 o'clock on that cursed Sunday evening at my house in the Lincoln Park neighborhood of Chicago. My wrinkled but still steady hands had spent the whole afternoon setting the dining room table. The white lace tablecloth I inherited from my grandmother Hope, the crystal glasses I only brought out for special occasions, the Lenox china I bought right after I got married. Everything was impeccable, as it always was when I tried, like a fool, to hold together a family that had long ago left me alone in silence. The vegetable lasagna was steaming on the silver tray, releasing that aroma of melted cheese and oregano that used to fill our house with life. I had put on some James Taylor in the background, the music we listened to when my kids were little and running down the hall. The lit candles cast golden shadows on the exposed brick walls painted a warm terracotta, the same walls that held 40 years of laughter, tears, and family secrets. My son David arrived on time, as always. At 35, with his perfectly pressed gray work suit and that forced smile he'd perfected since he started working at the bank downtown. With him were his wife, Jessica, a thin woman with a calculating gaze who always greeted me with 2 quick air kisses, and my grandson Leo, a 15-year-old teenager who no longer looked me in the eye the way he did when he was little. They didn't bring a single flower from the corner shop. Not even a warm, "Hi, Mom." Bye. They just walked in with their phones in their hands and frowns on their faces, as if being in my house was a heavy obligation they fulfilled out of pity. "Smells delicious, Carol," Jessica said, with that honeyed voice she used when she needed something. But her eyes scanned every corner of the living room, evaluating, calculating, as if she were at an auction. During dinner, the atmosphere felt as thick as the air before a summer thunderstorm. Leo barely looked up from his phone, answering in monosyllables when I asked about school. David cut his lasagna with mechanical movements, chewing without tasting, lost in thoughts that clearly didn't include his mother. Jessica smiled from time to time, but it was a hollow smile, without warmth. I, with a voice cracking from holding back so many words, tried to break the ice. "Is everything okay at work, honey? You seem so quiet." David dropped his fork onto the plate with a metallic clatter that echoed through the dining room. He looked at me as if I were a stranger who had just interrupted a private conversation. His eyes, which used to sparkle when he saw me, now pierced me with a coldness that chilled my blood. "Look, Mom." His voice sounded tired, weary. "You're here because this house is still in your name, but not because you're welcome. Do you understand?" My world came crashing down. I felt as if someone had shoved me off the top of the Hancock Tower. My heart stopped for an eternal second, and then began to beat so hard I thought it would burst from my chest. What did you say?" I murmured, gripping the edge of the table to keep from falling. "You heard me," he repeated with a monstrous coldness, as if he were talking about the weather. "This house isn't a home anymore. It's a liability. You are a liability. Jessica and I need peace, space, and we can't keep taking care of you." The words fell on me like stones. Each syllable struck my soul, shattering years of unconditional love I had poured over this son, who now looked at me as if I were an obstacle. Jessica didn't even flinch. She kept eating as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't just humiliated the woman who had welcomed them to her table with open arms. Leo got up from his chair without a word, without even looking at me, and went out to the back porch to smoke a cigarette he pulled from the pocket of his black jacket. I stayed there, frozen like a pillar of salt, with tears about to break my soul, and my heart shattered in pieces on the table I had set with so much love. The aroma of the lasagna had turned bitter in my nose. The candles seemed to mock me with their dancing light, and the James Taylor music now sounded like a funeral dirge. The house, my house, the one I built brick by brick with the sweat of my brow and the love of my hands, suddenly felt alien, hostile, as if the very walls were rejecting me. The family portraits hanging in the living room, where a young David was hugging me with his chubby little hands, now looked down on me like cruel jokes from the past. I couldn't sleep that night. I walked through the dark hallway of my own home as if I were an intruder, a homeless person who had snuck in without permission. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump. Every shadow reminded me that I was no longer welcome in the place where I had lived for 40 years of my life. The next day, as the sun filtered through the white linen curtains of my bedroom, I lay in bed remembering everything I had given for this family. I couldn't get up until 11 in the morning, something that had never happened to me in my 63 years. My body felt heavy, as if my soul had been drained from me during the night. I got up, dragging my feet across the original hardwood floors I loved so much, the ones with the intricate geometric inlays I had chosen when we remodeled the house 20 years ago. Each step echoed hollowly in the morning silence, reminding me that I was alone, that I had always been alone, though I hadn't realized it until now. I went to the kitchen to make myself some coffee, the way my mother had taught me back in our small town in Wisconsin. As the water percolated, my eyes fell on the wall where I had all the family photos hanging. There was David at 5, hugging my leg on his first day of kindergarten. At 12, when I bought him his first bicycle with the money I saved from selling pies at the school bake sale. At 18, on his high school graduation day, when I cried with pride because he would be the first in our family to go to college. How much did I spend on that university? I sold my grandmother's jewelry, the gold earrings that had been a family treasure for generations. I worked double shifts at the food processing plant for 4 years, coming home with swollen fingers and a broken back, just so I could pay for his books, his tuition, his expenses. I remember him coming home on weekends asking for money to go out with his friends, and I would give him my last few dollars without complaining, happy to see him smile. When he married Jessica, I paid for half the wedding, $15,000 that I had saved penny by penny over the years, stashed in a butter cookie tin under my bed. The reception was at a fancy banquet hall in Oak Park, with a live band and a feast for 200 guests. Jessica wanted the finest of everything: satin tablecloths, imported flowers, a 3-tiered cake that cost more than my salary for 2 months. "You understand, Carol," Jessica had said with that calculating smile. "We only get married once. David deserves the best." And I, like a fool, nodded and took out every last penny of my savings so my son could have the wedding of his dreams. Then came the house. They wanted to buy a condo in Lincoln Park, but they didn't have the full down payment. Who do you think gave it to them? $50,000 from my severance pay when the plant I'd worked at for 20 years shut down. My future, my security, my peace of mind. I gave it all to him without a second thought. "It's an investment, Mom," David had said as he signed the papers at the bank. "When we sell this house of yours, we'll double the money. You'll see." But the years passed, and the promise of doubling the money became an excuse to ask for more. The car payments, the tuition for Leo's private school, the anniversary trip to Hawaii. There was always an emergency, always a reason for me to open my wallet and give whatever was necessary. When Leo turned 15, Jessica wanted to throw him a huge party, like a sweet 16. In my family, we celebrate everything in a big way, Carol. We can't look bad in front of my parents. Another $5,000 from my pension went to that absurd celebration where Leo didn't even have fun, spending the whole night locked in his room playing video games. The coffee had gone cold in my hands as I remembered every sacrifice. I went to the fridge to find something for breakfast, but all I found were a few old eggs and a piece of cheddar that was starting to get moldy. There was no bread, no milk, nothing fresh. It had been weeks since I'd been to the grocery store because I had spent my last check on plane tickets for David and his family to visit Jessica's parents in Phoenix. "Just this once, Mom," he had pleaded over the phone. "Jessica's parents are sick and we need to see them. I promise I'll pay you back next month." That was 3 months ago. The money never came back, but the requests kept coming. I sat on the living room sofa, the green velvet one I bought when I got married, now worn at the arms. I closed my eyes and tried to remember the last time David had given me something without me asking. A birthday present? A Mother's Day dinner? A call just to ask how I was? I couldn't remember a thing. Instead, I could perfectly remember all the times I had cried in silence after giving him money I didn't have. All the nights I had gone to bed without dinner so I could give him what he needed. All the times I had pretended to be fine, when inside I was dying of sadness and exhaustion. The time I got pneumonia last year, I was in bed for 5 days with a fever. I called David to ask him to bring me some medicine from the pharmacy. "I can't right now, Mom. I'm in a very important meeting. I'll call you later." He never called. It was Mrs. Henderson, my neighbor of 40 years, who took care of me and brought me chicken soup every day until I recovered. For my 62nd birthday, I waited all afternoon sitting in the living room, dressed in my best blouse, the sky blue one I loved so much. I had bought a small cake from the corner bakery, one of those 3-layer cakes Leo loved when he was little. I set the table for 4, lit the candles, put on some Carole King. David arrived at 10 o'clock at night. "Sorry, Mom, we're late. Leo had soccer practice and then we went to dinner with Jessica's parents. He had no gift, no flowers, not even a smile. He ate a piece of cake while standing, checking his phone, and left, saying he had to be up early the next day. I was left alone with the half-burned candles and 3/4 of a cake that went stale in the refrigerator. That night I cried myself to sleep on the sofa, wondering what I had done wrong, at what point my son had stopped loving me. But I kept giving. I kept forgiving. I kept making excuses for his slights, believing that one day the loving little boy who used to hug me when he had nightmares would return. The one who would say, "I love you, Mommy," before bed, who drew me hearts on Mother's Day cards. The last time I lent him money was a month ago. Jessica had seen a leather sofa at Nordstrom that cost $3,000. "The one we have is so ugly, Carol. Besides, when my friends from the club come over, what will they think?" I took the money out of my savings account, the one I had started when I worked as a waitress at a little Italian place downtown, dollar by dollar, tip by tip. Now, sitting in my empty house with my stomach growling with hunger and my heart shattered by last night's words, I realized I had been the perfect idiot. A mother who bought her son's love at a premium, who confused giving with loving, who became invisible from serving others so much. The phone rang. It was David. "Mom, I need you to transfer me $500. Leo wants to take an SAT prep course," and I hung up without a word. For the first time in my life, I hung up on my son, and for the first time in my life, I felt something like freedom. The following days dragged on like snails on a wet sidewalk. Every morning I'd wake up hoping it had all been a nightmare, that David would call to apologize, that the cruel words from that cursed dinner would vanish like smoke. But the silence in my house grew heavier with each passing hour, reminding me that my son had truly told me I wasn't welcome in my own home. On Wednesday morning, while I was watering the plants on the back porch, the climbing roses I planted when David was a boy, I heard voices coming from the guest room. Jessica was on the phone, her voice seeping through the open window like a venomous snake. "No, Mom, I'm telling you, it's easier than we thought," she said with that crystalline laugh she used when she was plotting something. "The old woman's already losing it. She hung up on David yesterday like a crazy person. She's obviously not right in the head anymore. Dr. Evans already gave us the preliminary diagnosis." I dropped the watering can. The water spilled over my bare feet, soaking my slippers I'd bought at the weekend flea market. "Dr. Evans? What doctor?" I hadn't been to any doctor. "Yes, accelerated cognitive decline," Jessica continued. "With that, it's enough for David to make decisions for her. The house, the accounts, everything. We already spoke with Mr. Kaur. Davies, the lawyer, he says it's a simple process if we have the medical certificate." My world tilted like the city during the blizzard of '79. I grabbed the brick wall to keep from falling, feeling my knees turn to jelly. They were having me declared incompetent without even an examination. My own son was paying a doctor to diagnose me with dementia so he could take everything I had left. I ran to my bedroom, my heart pounding like a drum on the 4th of July. I locked the door, something I had never done in my own house, and sat on the bed, trembling like a leaf in the wind. How long had they been planning this? Since when did my son see me as a nuisance to be eliminated? That afternoon, when David came home from work, I pretended to be watching the soap operas in the living room as if nothing had happened. He walked into the kitchen without greeting me, opened the fridge, and took out a Bud Light. He just stood there, drinking, watching me with those eyes that once looked at me with love, and now assessed me as if I were a pesky fly. "Did you eat yet, Mom?" he asked. but his voice sounded mechanical, devoid of real interest. "No, honey. Do you want me to heat something up for you?" "No." He took another long swig. "By the way, a doctor is coming to see you tomorrow. It's just a routine checkup for your age." There it was. The trap, served on a silver platter. "What doctor? I didn't ask for a doctor." "Dr. Evans. He specializes in older people. You need a general checkup." The way he said older people felt like a stab, as if I were a piece of old furniture to be appraised to see if it was still useful or if it was time to throw it out. "I don't want to see any doctor. I feel fine." David slammed the beer bottle down on the counter with more force than necessary. The sound of glass against granite echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot. "Look, Mom, it's not optional. It's already been arranged. The doctor is coming tomorrow at 4. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I lay in the darkness, listening to the familiar sounds of the house. The grandfather clock in the living room chiming the hours, the water heater kicking on, the neighbor's cat yowling on the roof, but everything sounded different, menacing, as if my own home were conspiring against me. The next day, at 4 o'clock sharp, Dr. Evans arrived. He was a portly man in his 50s, with a thin mustache and thick glasses that made him look like a toad. He carried a black briefcase and wore a fake smile that didn't reach his eyes. David greeted him at the door as if he were a savior. "Doctor, thank you so much for coming. My mother has been very confused lately." "Confused?" I was sitting in the living room, perfectly put together in my navy blue dress, my hair freshly combed. There was nothing confused about me, except for the confusion of not understanding how my own son was betraying me like this. The doctor asked me absurd questions. What day it was, who the president was, what 2 plus 2 was. I answered everything correctly, in a clear, firm voice. But he scribbled things in a notebook, things I couldn't see, nodding his head as if confirming a diagnosis that was already decided. "Has she had any aggressive episodes?" he asked David, talking about me as if I weren't there. "Yes, doctor. She hung up on me yesterday for no reason, and last week she woke up shouting in the middle of the night." A lie. I had never shouted in the middle of the night. But the doctor noted that down in his damned notebook, too. Does she forget where she puts things? Constantly. The other day she couldn't find her glasses and they were on her head. Another lie. But there it went. Straight into the fake doctor's notes. When the sham consultation was over, the doctor spoke with David in a low voice by the door. I managed to hear fragments. Progressive decline. Inability to make decisions. Guardianship necessary. I sat on the sofa, pretending to watch the news. But inside, my soul was dying. My son was burying me alive, inventing symptoms I didn't have, buying doctors who would diagnose whatever he needed to steal my house, my money, my dignity. That night, after the doctor left and David disappeared into his room, I was left alone in the living room like a ghost in my own house. I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water, but my hands were shaking so much that the glass slipped and shattered on the tiled floor. As I picked up the shards of glass, every piece I touched cut my fingers, mixing my blood with the spilled water. It was the perfect image of what was happening to me. I was bleeding out in silence, piece by piece, while my own family destroyed me from within. I sat on the kitchen floor, among the broken glass and my tears, wondering when I had stopped being Carol Peterson, the strong woman who had raised her children alone after being widowed, and become this shadow that no one respected anymore. It was there, sitting on the cold floor of my kitchen, with bleeding hands and a shattered heart, that I made a decision that would change everything. Tomorrow, I would go to the bank. Tomorrow, I would find out exactly what was in my accounts, what documents had been signed without my consent, how much they had already stolen from me. And then, God willing, I would do something I had never done in my 63 years of life. I was going to fight back. Whatever it took, I was going to fight back. Because if I didn't do it for myself, no one else would. Friday morning, I arrived at the Chase Bank on Michigan Avenue, my legs trembling like jello. I had spent the whole night awake, turning over the words I'd heard Jessica say, trying to understand the depths of this betrayal that wore my own son's face. The bank teller who helped me was a young woman, no more than 25, with long, bright pink nails and a professional smile that faded when she looked at my account activity. "Mrs. Peterson," she said in a cautious voice, as if she were about to give me bad news about a sick relative. "I'm seeing several large withdrawals here in the last 6 months. Did you authorize all of these transactions?" My heart stopped when I saw the screen. Withdrawals of $500, $1,000, $2,000. Dates I didn't recognize. Amounts I had never authorized. My savings account, which had taken me 15 years to build, was practically empty. "No," I whispered, gripping the edge of the desk. "I didn't authorize this. It says here they were made with your debit card and PIN, ma'am. Is it possible someone else has access to that information?" David. My son had my card for emergencies. I had given it to him years ago, when he told me it would be easier for him to handle my big expenses, that I should only worry about groceries and utilities. Like a fool, I had given him my PIN, blindly trusting that he would never abuse that trust. I walked out of the bank like a zombie, stumbling down the crowded sidewalk of the Magnificent Mile, dodging tourists and shoppers, the noise of the traffic, the voices, the car horns. It all mixed together in my head like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I sat on a bench in a small park, facing the historic water tower, and I cried like I hadn't cried since the day my husband died. An older woman selling hot dogs from a cart came over, concerned. "Are you all right, sweetie? Need me to call someone?" Who was I going to call? My son who was stealing from me? My daughter-in-law who wanted to have me declared incompetent? I had no one. Absolutely no one. "No, thank you. I'm just tired," I lied, drying my tears with the embroidered handkerchief that had belonged to my mother. When I got home that afternoon, I found the whole family gathered in my living room. David was sitting in my favorite armchair, Jessica on the sofa with Leo beside her. And there was one more person, an older man in a gray suit I didn't know. "Ah, Mom, good you're here," David said with a smile that didn't fool me for a second. "This is Mr. Davies. He's a lawyer. We need to sort out some important papers." The lawyer stood up and extended his hand with the false politeness lawyers use when they're about to swindle someone. He was a bald man, about 60, with small, beady eyes like a rat's. "A pleasure, Mrs. Peterson. Your son has told me about your situation. I'm here to help you with some paperwork that will make things easier for the whole family." "What paperwork?" I asked, but I already knew the answer. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would leap out of my chest. Jessica stood up, a folder in her hands. She was dressed as if for a funeral, in an elegant black dress and heels that clicked against the floor like hammer blows. "Carol, the thing is, after what happened with Dr. Evans, we're all worried about you. Mr. Davies says the best thing is for David to manage your assets, to protect you. It's for your own good. I don't need anyone to manage my assets. I'm perfectly fine." David leaned forward, wearing the expression of forced patience he used when Leo misbehaved. "Mom, don't get upset. Nobody's taking anything from you. We just want to make sure that if something happens to you, everything is in order. They're just precautions." The lawyer opened his briefcase and took out some documents filled with fine print and official-looking seals. "Mrs. Peterson, these documents establish a trust where your son will act as the trustee of your estate. You maintain all your rights, but in the event of a certified medical incapacity, he will be able to make the necessary decisions." "A medical incapacity? But I'm fine." "Mom," David interrupted, his voice firmer. "Dr. Evans has already confirmed that you have early-onset dementia. You can't keep making important financial decisions. It's dangerous for you." Rage rose in my throat like bile. That damned bought-off doctor, that treacherous son, that greedy daughter-in-law, all of them conspiring to steal what was left of my life. "I'm not signing anything," I said, my voice as steady as I could make it. The silence that followed was as heavy as lead. Jessica and David exchanged a look, and I saw something in their eyes that chilled my blood. It wasn't surprise. It was annoyance, as if my refusal were just a minor obstacle in a pre-drawn plan. "Mom," David said, getting up from the armchair, "don't make this harder than it has to be. We all know you're not well. I found you talking to yourself in the kitchen yesterday." Another lie. But Leo nodded, backing his father up. My own grandson, the boy I had raised while his parents worked, was now part of this conspiracy. "If you don't sign willingly," David continued, "we'll have to do it the hard way. The doctor has already given us the certificate of incapacity." We can go to court and have a judge declare you mentally incompetent." The words hit me like slaps. My son was threatening me in my own living room, in front of my coffee table where we had played Candyland when he was a boy, under the same roof where I had nursed him through the chicken pox. "Out," I whispered. "What did you say?" Jessica asked, her voice shrill. "I said get out. Out of my house. All of you." David moved toward me, and for the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own son. His face was red with anger, the veins in his neck standing out like taut ropes. "This house is going to be ours soon enough, so you better get used to it. And if you don't sign those papers today, we're going to court tomorrow. Do you want everyone to know you have dementia? Do you want the neighbors to see when social services comes to take you to a nursing home?" Jessica smiled, a cruel, satisfied smile, as if she had been waiting for this moment for years. "Think about it, Carol. We want to take care of you here, in your home. But if you're going to be difficult, we'll have to look at other options." The lawyer packed up his papers with the efficiency of someone used to these scenes. "I'll give you until Monday to think it over, Mrs. Peterson. After that, we will have to proceed with legal action." They left as they had arrived, leaving me alone in my living room that no longer felt like mine. The air smelled of betrayal, of threats, of plans that had been laid against me for months. I stood there, in the middle of my own home, feeling like a stranger. But something had changed in me during that conversation. The anger had burned away the fear. The outrage had awakened something that had been dormant for years. I went to my bedroom and pulled a shoebox from under the mattress where I kept my most important documents. There it was, the deed to the house, my birth certificate, my will, all in my name, all mine. I looked at myself in the mirror of the dresser that had belonged to my mother. My face was tired, wrinkled from years of work and worry, but my eyes were still the same. The eyes of Carol Peterson, the woman who had raised 2 children alone, who had worked since she was 15, who had survived the death of her husband and 20 years of loneliness. "No," I said to my reflection, "they are not going to break me." It was time to fight. I woke on Saturday with a mental clarity I hadn't felt in months. It was as if I had been asleep for years and had finally woken up. I got up early at 6 in the morning like I used to when I worked at the plant. But this time it wasn't out of obligation. It was by choice. David and his family had left Friday night after the meeting with the lawyer. They didn't tell me where they were going, just packed some bags and left, probably for Jessica's parents' house in Winnetka, where they always ran when things got tough here. For the first time in months, my house was completely silent. No demanding voices, no TV blasting from Leo's room, no arguments between David and Jessica about money or work, just the golden silence of the morning seeping through my bedroom windows. I made myself a breakfast I hadn't made in years. Blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup, crispy bacon, scrambled eggs, and coffee with a dash of cinnamon. I sat at my kitchen table, the one I bought when I got married 40 years ago, and ate slowly, savoring every bite without rush, without having to listen to complaints about the food or requests for money. After breakfast, I did something I hadn't done since David and his family moved in. I went for a walk in my neighborhood. I put on my yellow flowered dress, the one David always criticized, saying it looked like a housewife's uniform, and walked the tree-lined streets of Lincoln Park as if I were discovering them for the first time. I greeted Mrs. Henderson, my neighbor, who was watering her red geraniums in her small front yard. "Carol, so good to see you. How are you, dear?" "I'm wonderful, Helen. Better than I've been in a long time." And it was true. Despite everything that was happening, I felt lighter, as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I kept walking to the Alfred Caldwell Lily Pool, where I sat on a bench under the shade of the great oak trees. I watched the young mothers pushing strollers, the old men playing chess at the concrete tables, the children running through the grass. Normal life, life without drama, life without manipulation. There, sitting on that bench, I made my first concrete decision. I took out my phone and called the bank. "Good morning. This is Carol Peterson. I want to cancel the additional card that is in my son David Peterson's name." "Are you sure, ma'am? Is there a problem with the card?" "I'm completely sure. Cancel it immediately." When I hung up, I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It was as if I had cut a cord that had been tethering me, as if for the first time in years I had taken control of something that was mine. Then I called the power company. I want to change the account to my name only. Please remove all other authorized persons. Then the gas, the phone, the cable. One by one, I was reclaiming control of my own house, my own life. On Monday morning, when David returned, I was sitting in the living room sipping chamomile tea and reading the Chicago Tribune as if nothing had happened. He came in with that sour look he got when things didn't go his way. "Have you thought about what we discussed on Friday?" he asked, dropping his keys on the coffee table with that metallic clatter he always used to show he was annoyed. "Yes, I have. And I've decided I'm not signing anything." David sat across from me with that condescending smile he had perfected at the bank. "Mom, we've been over this. It's not your decision. The doctor has already... Dr. Evans is a fraud, and you know it." The smile vanished from his face as if I'd thrown cold water on it. "What did you say?" "I said he's a fraud. A hired gun you paid to give you the diagnosis you needed. I don't have dementia, David. What I have is a thief for a son." He turned red as a beet. He shot up from the sofa so fast he knocked over the table lamp beside it. "How dare you? Everything we've done has been for your own good." "For my good? Stealing my savings was for my good? Lying to a doctor to have me declared incompetent was for my good? You can't manage money. Look at how you live. This house is falling apart." I stood up slowly, feeling a strength I didn't know I possessed. "This house is mine. The money is mine. And my life is mine. And from today on, I will decide what to do with all of it. You can't kick us out. You have nowhere to go. You have no one else." For the first time in years, I smiled at my son. A calm, fearless smile. "David, I'm not kicking you out. I'm setting you free. Now you don't have to pretend you love me to get my things. You can leave and be happy without having to take care of your crazy mother." He shouted for Jessica. She came down the stairs like a whirlwind, her hair a mess and her face bare of makeup, which made her look younger, but also crueler. "What's going on here? Your mother-in-law has really lost it. She says we have to leave." Jessica looked at me with those cold, shark-like eyes. "Carol, you can't live alone. It's dangerous at your age. Besides, we've invested a lot of money in this house." "What money did you invest? The only money that's been spent here has been mine. We paid for the bathroom remodel. With my money. We bought the new furniture. With my money. We paid for Leo's tuition. With my money." Every "with my money" I said was like a slap in the face to them. I saw their expressions crumble, saw them realize they had no arguments left. Jessica switched tactics. She approached me with that syrupy voice she used when she wanted something. "Carol, we love you very much. That's why we're worried. You're not young anymore. Something could happen to you. Something could happen to me living alone. Or something could happen to me living with you. The difference is alone. I'll die in peace." Leo appeared on the stairs. My grandson, who had been my companion for so many afternoons after school, who had told me he loved me just a few months ago. "What's wrong, Dad? Your grandmother is kicking us out of the house." Leo looked at me with the confused expression of a teenager when the adult world becomes too complicated. "Is that true, Grandma?" I went to him, my grandson who looked so lost among his parents' lies. "Leo, do you think I'm crazy?" The boy looked at his parents, then at me. For a moment, I saw the little boy he had been, the one who stayed with me when his parents went on trips, the one who helped me make oatmeal cookies on Sunday afternoons. "No, Grandma, you're not crazy." David yanked him by the arm. "Leo, stay out of adult business." "Dad, but Grandma's not." "I said stay out of it." That's when I realized that Leo was also a victim of his own parents. They were using him, manipulating him, making him an accomplice to something he didn't even fully understand. "Leo," I said softly, "you will always be welcome in this house. Always. But you come alone, is that clear?" The boy nodded, and I saw tears in his eyes. That night, for the first time in 3 years, I ate dinner alone in my kitchen. I made myself cheese quesadillas, put on some Frank Sinatra, and lit a lavender-scented candle. There was no shouting, no reproaches, no tension, just peace. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night. David and Jessica disappeared for 3 days after our confrontation, The house felt strange without them, like when you take off shoes that have been pinching you all day. At first, the freedom hurts a little, but then comes the relief. On Thursday morning, the phone rang. It was Jessica, with that poisoned honey voice she used when she wanted to manipulate someone. Carol, David, and I have been thinking a lot about what happened. We want to talk to you. We want to reach an agreement that works for everyone. What kind of agreement? Well, we understand that you want to maintain a certain independence, but we also need to ensure you're well taken care of. How about we get together this afternoon? We can order some Chinese food, like old times, and talk like a family. Like a family. The words sounded hollow, like counterfeit coins that make noise but have no value. Fine. 6 o'clock. I spent the day preparing for what I knew would be the final battle. I showered, put on my navy blue dress, the most elegant one I owned, and put on makeup for the first time in weeks. If this was going to be my last confrontation with them, I wanted to look like the dignified woman I was, not the victim they had tried to turn me into. At 6 sharp, they arrived. David carried bags of food from the Golden Dragon, the same place we had celebrated his 30th birthday. Jessica carried a bottle of red wine and her most convincing smile. Leo trailed behind, dragging his feet as if he'd been forced to come. "Mom, we brought chicken lo mein, the kind you like," David said with a forced cheerfulness that didn't fool me for a second. They set the dining room table as if it were a celebration. Placemats, wine glasses, cloth napkins. All very civilized, very familial, very normal. But I could feel the tension in the air, thick as fog. During dinner, we pretended to be a normal family. We talked about the weather, David's work, Leo's school. Jessica poured me wine and asked about my plants, as if she genuinely cared whether my roses were blooming. But I knew this was just the prelude, the calm before the storm. After dessert, when Leo excused himself to go to the bathroom, David cleared his throat and put on the serious face he used at the bank when he had to deny a loan. "Mom, Jessica and I have been thinking a lot about our conversation on Monday." "Oh, really?" "Yes. And we think you're right about some things. Maybe we were too hasty with the lawyer." Jessica nodded vigorously, like one of those bobblehead dolls. "Exactly, Carol. We don't want you to feel pressured. Not at all." "How considerate," I said, taking a sip of wine. "So," David continued, "we've come up with a proposal we think you'll really like." He pulled out a folder he'd kept hidden under his chair. Inside were new documents, different from the ones the lawyer had brought. "This is a cohabitation agreement. Basically, you allow us to live here, and we take care of all the house expenses. Maintenance, utilities, repairs, everything. You don't pay a cent, and we don't ask you for anything." I stared at him, trying to find the catch. Because with David, there was always a catch. "And what do you get out of it?" "Nothing, Mom. Just the peace of mind of knowing you're being looked after." Jessica leaned forward with that smile she'd practiced in the mirror. "Carol, we love you very much. We just want everyone to be comfortable, for there to be no more fights, for us to be a happy family again." Leo returned from the bathroom and sat down in silence, but I saw him exchange a look with his parents, a look that seemed rehearsed, coordinated. "And how long would this contract be for?" I asked. "Well," David hesitated for the first time. "It would be indefinite. Until you no longer need the house." There it was. The trap, wrapped in gift paper. "Until I no longer need the house? You mean until I die?" "No, Mom. Don't say things like that. We mean if you ever want to move somewhere more appropriate for your age. Like a nursing home? No, like a retirement community. There are some beautiful ones on the North Shore, with gardens, activities, nurses 24/7. I stood up from the table so fast my chair wobbled. The sound echoed through the dining room like a gunshot. "You know what? I'm done with this theater." I went to my bedroom and got the shoebox with my documents. I returned to the dining room and put everything on the table. The deed to the house, my will, the bank statements, everything. "This," I said, tapping the deed with my finger, "is my house. It's in my name. I paid for it. I built it. I've cared for it for 40 years. Mom, no one's saying it isn't yours." "Shut up. I am tired of your lies, your manipulations, your emotional blackmail. I'm tired of pretending I don't know what you're doing. Jessica tried to intervene in her sweet little girl voice. Carol, please, don't get upset. We just want— I know what you want. You want my house without paying for it. You want my money without working for it. You want to get rid of me without feeling guilty. David stood up, his face red with rage. We've taken care of you. We've lived here. We've paid expenses. With my money. Everything you've done has been with my money. The furniture, the renovations, the trips, Leo's school, everything. Leo was sitting in his chair, staring at his plate, his ears red with shame. For the first time, he was truly seeing what was happening, without the filter of his parents' lies. And another thing, I continued, addressing David directly. I know about Dr. Evans. I know you paid him to diagnose me with dementia. I know about the bank accounts. I know everything. His face fell as if I'd thrown acid on it. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence. I'm 63, not 6. I've worked since I was 15. I raised children alone. I've survived things you can't even imagine. I am not the foolish old woman you think I am. Jessica started to cry. Fake, crocodile tears that didn't move me one bit. Carol, please. Think of Leo. He needs stability. He needs a united family. Leo will have stability. In his own home, with parents who work to support him. Not with a grandmother who supports all of them. I went over to Leo, who still hadn't looked up from his plate. Son, look at me. He lifted his head slowly. His eyes were wet, confused, scared. You will always be my grandson. You will always have a place in my heart and in this house. But you come alone when you want to talk to me, when you need your grandmother, not when your parents need something. The boy nodded. And for the first time in months, I saw something in his eyes that resembled the love he'd had for me when he was little. Now, I said, turning back to David and Jessica, I want you to leave. Today. Tonight. You can't just throw us out. We're your family. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't lie to each other. Family doesn't try to have their mother declared incompetent to take her assets. I went to the living room and picked up the phone. Who are you calling? Jessica asked hysterically. The police? To have them escort some trespassers who are refusing to leave my property. David snatched the phone from my hands. You're crazy. You're actually crazy. Maybe I am, but I'm crazy in my own house with my own money making my own decisions. That night, after 3 hours of shouting, threats, and blackmail, they left. David and Jessica packed their things like a hurricane, throwing clothes into suitcases, yelling at each other, blaming each other for the failure of their plan. Leo said goodbye to me on the porch, under the yellow light of the bulb my husband had installed before he died. Are you going to be okay, Grandma? I'm going to be perfect, son. For the first time in years, I'm going to be perfect. When they were gone, I stood in the doorway of my house, breathing in the cool Chicago night air. The air tasted like freedom. The first few days after they left were strange. Like when you take off a shoe that's been hurting you for hours, and your foot doesn't know how to feel without the pain. My house felt enormous and silent, but it was a golden silence. Not the heavy silence of tension I had lived with for years. On Friday morning, I woke up without an alarm for the first time in decades. There was no breakfast to make for David before he left for the bank. No school uniforms for Leo to wash. No listening to Jessica complain that the coffee was too strong or too weak. Just me, my comfortable bed, and the sun seeping through my bedroom curtains. I got up slowly, unhurriedly, and went to the kitchen to make myself a breakfast I hadn't prepared in years. A stack of blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup and crispy bacon, and coffee from the French press I found in the back of a cabinet. I sat at the kitchen table, that round wooden table I bought at an antique market when I was newly married, and ate slowly, chewing every bite, savoring my freedom. After breakfast, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to my closet and pulled out all the blouses and dresses that David and Jessica had criticized. That blouse makes you look older, Mom. That color doesn't suit you. Why don't you buy something more modern? I tried on each garment in front of the full-length mirror in my bedroom. the pink blouse with embroidered flowers that my sister had given me before she died, the red dress I wore to my best friend's wedding that Jessica said was too flashy for a woman your age, the silver earrings I had inherited from my grandmother that I kept in a box because they made noise when I walked. I put on the red dress, the silver earrings, and painted my lips with the same shade of lipstick I used when I was 30. When I saw myself in the mirror, I didn't see the tired, faded woman I had become. I saw Carol Peterson, the woman who had worked at the plant for 20 years, who had raised 2 children alone, who had survived the loss of her husband and kept going with her head held high. I stepped outside as if it were the first time I was seeing my neighborhood. I walked along the sidewalks of Lincoln Park, greeting neighbors I hadn't seen in months because I was always in a hurry to get home to cook or clean or solve some family problem. "Carol, so good to see you," Mr. Robertson shouted from his newsstand on the corner. "You look wonderful, very elegant." "Thank you, Mr. Robertson. I feel wonderful." And it was true. I felt as if I had been sick for years and had finally been cured. I kept walking to an independent bookstore, a small, cozy place where I used to buy novels before my life became so complicated. The owner, a woman my age with silver hair and colorful glasses, recognized me immediately. "Carol, it's been so long. How have you been?" "Learning to live again," I told her, and we both laughed as if it were a joke, but I knew it was the purest truth I had spoken in months. I bought 3 books, one of poems by Mary Oliver, one of short stories by Alice Munro, and one on traditional American baking. Books to feed my soul and books to feed my body in a new, creative way, without the pressure of cooking for people who didn't appreciate my effort. That afternoon, while I was reading in my backyard under the shade of the maple tree I planted when Leo was a baby, the doorbell rang. It was Leo, standing on the porch with a small backpack and the face of a scolded puppy. "Hi, Grandma." "Hi, son. Are you okay? Can I come in?" My parents went to Phoenix to my grandparents' house, but I didn't want to go. "I'm staying with my Uncle Mark." I let him in and made him hot chocolate with marshmallows, just like I used to when he was little and came to visit after school. "Are you mad at me, Grandma?" "Why would I be mad at you?" "Because I knew my parents were lying about the doctor, and I didn't say anything." It broke my heart to see him like that, carrying guilt that wasn't his. I sat next to him on the living room sofa and took his hands, which were big now, a young man's hands, but they still trembled like a scared child's. "Leo, none of this is your fault. Your parents are adults. They make their own decisions. You're a kid. You depend on them. You couldn't have done anything differently, but I feel bad. I feel like I betrayed you. You know what the only thing that would truly hurt me would be? If you grew up thinking it's okay to treat people who love you like that. If you grew up believing that money is more important than respect, that material things are worth more than relationships." Leo was quiet for a while, sipping his chocolate, looking at the family photos on the coffee table. Pictures of when he was little, of when we went to the Lincoln Park Zoo to feed the ducks, of when he helped me bake Christmas cookies in December. "Can I still come and see you?" "Of course, son. This will always be your house. But you come because you want to be with me, because you love me, because you like talking to your grandmother, not because your parents send you or because they need something." "Yes, Grandma. I do love you. I really do." That night, after Leo left, I sat in my living room with a glass of red wine I'd bought at Binny's. I put on some Nina Simone, the kind of music David always said was for old ladies, and I sang along at the top of my lungs to the songs I knew by heart. For the first time in years, my house sounded joyful. On Saturday, I decided to do something I had wanted to do for a long time, but never dared. I signed up for a dance class at the Lincoln Park Cultural Center. I'd seen the ad in the community newspaper weeks before. "Ballroom for seniors. It's never too late to start." Jessica always scoffed when I mentioned I'd like to learn to dance. "Oh, Carol, what for? At your age, who are you going to dance with?" As if 63 were 90. As if life ended when you turned 60. I put on a comfortable cotton dress, low but elegant heels, and took the L train north. The cultural center was full of people my age, men and women who had decided that life didn't end with retirement, that the heart didn't have an expiration date. The instructor was a beautiful woman in her 70s, with white hair pulled back in an elegant bun and a smile that lit up the entire room. "Welcome, everyone. Here. Nobody judges, nobody criticizes, nobody is in a rush. We are here only to enjoy the music and move our bodies as best we can." For 2 hours, I moved to the rhythm of the foxtrot and the waltz, clumsily at first, but with growing confidence. I danced with Mr. Arthur, a 68-year-old widower who had been a mechanic his whole life. He stepped on my feet 5 times but made me laugh in a way I hadn't laughed in years. "You know something, Carol?" he said, as we attempted a complicated turn. "I've been coming to these classes for 3 years, and I still dance like an elephant in a china shop. But I'm the happiest elephant in the world." I returned home that afternoon with sore feet but a light soul. I made myself a simple but delicious dinner. A beautiful piece of salmon with roasted asparagus, and I sat on my back porch to eat under the stars. There was no TV blasting at full volume. I didn't have to listen to arguments about money or complaints about work. I didn't have to pretend that cruel comments disguised as concern didn't hurt me. I only had silence, stars, and the feeling that for the first time in years, my life belonged completely to me. That night, I dreamed I was flying. 6 months after that night, when I finally closed the door of my house behind David and Jessica, I am sitting on my back porch under the maple tree that has grown so much it now shades the entire wrought iron table I bought at the Randolph Street Market last month. It's my first new piece of furniture in years, chosen by me, paid for with my money, placed where I wanted it. It has been 6 months of learning to live with myself again, of remembering who Carol Peterson was before she became the mother who gave everything without receiving anything, the grandmother who sacrificed in silence, the invisible woman who existed only to serve others. Leo comes to visit me every Saturday, not because his parents send him, not because he needs money for school or new clothes. He comes because he likes to talk with me, because he enjoys the oatmeal cookies we bake together, because here he can be the confused teenager he is without having to carry the expectations of parents who used him as a pawn in their games of manipulation. Last Saturday, he told me that David and Jessica are living in a small apartment in Bridgeport, that his dad had to get a part-time weekend job because his salary from the bank alone isn't enough to maintain the lifestyle they had grown accustomed to with my money. "My mom is really angry," Leo told me as we mixed the cookie dough. "She says the house where they live now is too small, that the neighbors are noisy, that she can't invite her friends from the club over anymore because she's embarrassed." I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. I no longer have room in my heart for resentment. I only felt a deep tranquility, like when you finish cleaning the house and everything is in its place. "And how do you feel living there?" "Better, Grandma. There isn't as much drama. My parents can't blame you for their problems anymore, so they complain less. And I come here with you every Saturday. So I'm okay." My grandson had matured in these months. At 15, he already understood things it had taken me 63 years to learn. That true love can't be bought, that family isn't a license for abuse, that respecting your elders doesn't mean letting them mistreat you. 3 months ago, David called me. It was the first time we had spoken since that night of the final confrontation. "Mom," he said, with a voice that was trying to sound casual, "how have you been?" "Very well, son. And you?" "Well, good. Working a lot. The apartment is fine, although it's smaller than the house." There was a long, uncomfortable silence. I wasn't going to make it easy for him. I had spent enough years making others comfortable at the expense of my own discomfort. "Mom, I wanted to ask if we could talk. Maybe go out for lunch someday." "What do you want to talk about, David?" To fix things. We're family. We can't go on like this." "Fix what things? Are you going to return the money you stole from me? Are you going to apologize for trying to have me declared incompetent? Are you going to admit that you used me for years?" Another silence. Longer this time. "Mom, I never wanted to hurt you. We were just worried about you. David, if you ever want to talk to me, you have to start by telling the truth. As long as you keep lying, as long as you keep justifying what you did, we have nothing to talk about." "But you're my mother." "Exactly. I'm your mother. Not your personal bank, not your life insurance policy, not your maid. I'm your mother, and as such, I deserve respect." I hung up the phone feeling strangely at peace. There was no anger in me, no pain, just clarity. 2 weeks ago, while I was watering my plants on the porch, Jessica showed up at my door. She looked thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, without the impeccable makeup she always wore. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked vulnerable. "Carol, can we talk?" I let her in, offered her some iced tea, and we sat in the living room. She looked around the house with nostalgia, as if remembering the years she had lived here spending my money as if it were her own. "Carol, I wanted to apologize." I looked at her, waiting for her to continue. "I know things got out of control. I know we went too far with the doctor, with the lawyer's papers. But you have to understand that we just wanted to secure Leo's future. At the expense of my present? No. Yes. I don't know. Everything got so complicated. Jessica, you and David saw me as the goose that laid the golden eggs. As long as I kept laying them, you fed me and took care of me. But when you thought the goose was running out of eggs, you decided to cut her open to get what was left." She started to cry. Tears that, this time, seemed real to me. Not like the crocodile tears she had shed so many times when she wanted something. "Carol, do you think you could ever forgive us?" "I've already forgiven you, Jessica. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. Forgiving doesn't mean trusting again. Forgiving just means I no longer carry resentment in my heart." "And Leo? Can Leo still come over?" "Leo will always be welcome here, but he comes alone, as a grandson who wants to see his grandmother, not as a messenger for his parents." She left that afternoon without trying to convince me of anything else. I think for the first time, she understood that the submissive woman she had known no longer existed. Now, as I write these lines in my new journal, the one I bought at a beautiful stationery store because I wanted to document this new chapter of my life, I can say that I am happy. Not the euphoric happiness of special moments, but the quiet, deep happiness of someone who has found her place in the world. My days now have a rhythm that I choose. I wake up when my body tells me to, not when someone else's alarm clock forces me to. I eat whatever I feel like for breakfast, not whatever is left in the fridge after feeding a family. I go out when I want to go out, not when I'm needed for something. I go to my ballroom classes on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Mr. Arthur and I don't step on each other's feet as much anymore, and last Tuesday we even dared to dance to "In the Mood" without stumbling once. The group has become my new chosen family, people who know me as Carol, not as David's mom or Leo's grandma. I read 3 books a month. I cook new recipes from the cookbooks I've been buying. I planted an herb garden in pots I placed by the kitchen window. Basil, rosemary, mint, thyme. Herbs I use in my cooking, that I smell when I walk past them, that remind me that life can be beautiful in the smallest details. Some days I miss having family around. I miss the sound of voices in the house. I miss cooking for more than one person. I miss having someone to tell about the little things in my day. But I no longer miss the constant tension, the lies, the feeling of being invisible in my own home. Leo asked me last week, "Grandma, do you regret kicking my parents out?" "No, son. I regret waiting so long to do it. But don't you feel lonely?" There's a very big difference between being alone and feeling lonely. I lived for many years feeling lonely even when the house was full of people. Now I am alone, but I don't feel lonely. I am at peace with myself. That this evening, as the sun sets behind the Chicago skyline, painting the sky in shades of orange and fiery pink, I raise my wine glass to the horizon as a silent toast to the woman I was, the woman I am, and the woman I can still become. At 63, I learned that it's never too late to defend yourself, that it's never too late to say no, that it's never too late to choose your own happiness over the comfort of others. Life doesn't end when you turn 60. Sometimes, at 60, it truly begins. Have you, or has someone you know, gone through something similar? Have you had to choose between your own dignity and keeping a family together? Tell me your experience in the comments. If this story touched your heart, give it a like and subscribe to the channel so this message can reach someone who needs to hear it. Because we all deserve to be valued, respected, and loved for who we truly are.